What's going on? Why does everyone suddenly have autism?
That is my reaction when I read some of the comments on one of my best videos of all time, called "These are the correct opinions on every major political issue," where on every major political issue, I steelman the left, steelman the right, and then provide the enlightened centrist correct answer. For some reason, that reason being autism, people leave comments like these. "I'm going to steelman both sides." Proceeds to strawman both sides. Lol. "I think he got them mixed up or something. LMAO. You're telling me that when it comes to climate change, wanting to kill everyone who lights a campfire is not an accurate steelman of the left? That's the joke. If that was a joke, it wasn't made obvious that it was. LMAO. There is no center. You're not actually offering a centrist solution, just a different form of leftism. Look, I'm trying to win a meme war here. I'm trying to engineer memetic weaponry that is capable of eradicating the mind virus that is political tribalism. And as I have documented previously, autists form an essential part of any ideology's meme army. You need these cognitive berserkers to take your memes, apply gain-of-function research to them, and then spread them over Twitter, Reddit, TikTok, etc. However, the problem with these cognitive berserkers is that they have a hard time dealing with something called irony, which is an important memetic tool that I use quite liberally. And it's for this reason that I know that anyone who disagrees with me must be autistic. Case in point, JJ McCullough's entire fan base.
There are people in this world that are just uniquely gifted at certain things. And I think that...
Now, I can already hear the criticism from people. That's very convenient, Paul. So if someone doesn't get your jokes or find them funny, they must be autistic. No. If someone doesn't get my jokes or find them funny, they're probably autistic. That's why the title of the video is called "Why Everyone Who Disagrees with Me is Probably Autistic." What these people don't understand is you don't win a meme war by being logical and Socratic all the time. You need to be anti-intellectual and non-rational, which is the essence of sarcasm, mockery, and humor. The fundamental flaw that the autists who disagree with me have is they tend to be hyper-rational. They tend to believe that if an idea is logically consistent and coherent, then that is what determines whether or not it's a true or good idea. And let me be perfectly clear, just because you're logically consistent doesn't mean you're right.
But in the world where we are in, one of the worst things that can happen is people say you're inconsistent. They feel like if you're inconsistent, that shows you must be wrong. But it might show that actually what you're trying to do is to balance two things that in slightly different ways, in different circumstances, are equally important, but appear to our rather simple-minded way of looking at the world like contradictions. And unfortunately, you can't get away from this. People with certain types of autism, certainly because I don't believe that autism is a simple single entity, become hyper-rationalistic and don't find it odd when they reach completely absurd conclusions.
In fact, and this is going to be a real hot take, I have yet to hear a convincing moral or legal argument as to why possession of child should be illegal. Actual child.
The argument that I was making essentially is that people are inconsistent in their moral outrage.
He really was making that argument. Oh my God. Oh my God. This is like, you know, sometimes people are so smart they're stupid.
How can someone be so smart they're stupid? This seems like a logical contradiction. But remember,
it might show that actually what you're trying to do is to balance two things that in slightly different ways, in different circumstances, are equally important, but appear to our rather simple-minded way of looking at the world like contradictions.
The two things we're trying to balance is our very narrow understanding of intelligence, which involves the ability to string together logically coherent and propositionally consistent ideas, and self-awareness, which is a deeper, more social form of intelligence that involves understanding that logical argumentation is very rarely how people change their beliefs. Recognizing that people can be so smart they appear stupid is an essential philosophical insight at the base of enlightened centrism. It's how we fight back against the epistemological fascists who elevate logic and reason to the highest place in the value hierarchy, and who worship at the tyrannical altar of what is called propositional knowing.
So the kind of knowing we're most familiar with and our culture is very fixated on is propositional knowing. This is knowing that something is the case. This is knowing that cats are mammals, knowing that 2 + 2 = 4.
There's propositional knowing. This is what we are most familiar with. In fact, it's almost has a tyrannical status.
And the problem with our culture is we are up here at the abstract level of saying this is all what knowing is, and everything below it is left out of the picture. Yet everything below it, especially the deeper you go, is where all the coupling that makes cognition come into existence is actually to be found.
And so at the bottom of a linguistic structure, there's something that's extra linguistic, and it tends to take form in metaphor and narrative and drama and that sort of thing.
Propositional knowing is the kind of knowing associated with intelligence and logical consistency. But underneath the linguistic and abstract domain of nerd shit, facts, and logic are deeper, embodied, extra-linguistic ways of knowing, the most important of which is called procedural knowing.
So the next is procedural knowing. This is knowing how. This is knowing how to kiss someone. This is knowing how to kick a ball. This is knowing how to swim. And this doesn't result in beliefs, right? This results in skills. And skills aren't true or false. Tim, do you know how to swim?
I do.
Right. Now, is swimming true or false right now? No, you're misunderstanding. Skills aren't true or false. They apply or they don't, and they apply powerfully or they don't. And then, prosaically enough, psychologists call the form of memory associated with this procedural memory.
When you remember your past, that little movie that runs in your head, that's episodic memory. That's representational. But procedural memory is different. Procedural memory is how you walk. You don't know how you walk. That's how you ride a bike. It's how you play the piano. It's how you type. So it's automatic.
Automatic. Still is.
It's built into the nerves that innervate your musculature, and they're completely separate memory systems.
When it comes to winning the great meme wars, the war of ideas raging in our culture, you are useless if you cannot understand the difference between being logical and being socially skilled, having the procedural knowledge of how to make use of what the kids call RIZZ.
Why are there some people who suck, who you don't like? They're not interesting. They're not fun to be around. They say nothing that is of any interest. There are other people who say absolutely nothing and everybody loves them. Why is this? Animal magnetism, mesmerism.
You know that the same person can be admired by a lot of different people, even people who differ in their political beliefs. And that admiration sort of captures them. That's charisma. That's part of charisma. And the charisma is part of an instinct, right? Because if I think you're charismatic, and then I'm going to watch you more, my eyes are going to point to you more, I'm going to be more likely to do the things you do. I'm more likely to imitate you.
Why do all these right-wingers gesticulate and talk like Donald Trump? Why do all these online politics nerds stream video games and debate like Destiny? It's because Trump and Destiny are very good at operating beyond the domain of propositional knowing. They possess a great deal of charisma, and that charisma causes those who admire them to consciously or unconsciously imitate not just their beliefs, but often their mannerisms. For those of you who've watched this channel and a fair amount of Jordan Peterson, you may have noticed I often adopt phrases and mannerisms very similar to Hair Doctor because I consciously and unconsciously, I guess, admire his ability to communicate ideas. How much do you follow Jordan B. Peterson out of curiosity?
I almost just said a second ago, you must watch a lot of Peterson, almost like your cadence and the way that you say
Is it obvious?
Peterson-like, yes.
It's almost impossible to overstate the importance that imitation plays in belief formation. Most of the beliefs you have are not yours because you arrived at them through experiential or empirical analysis. Most of the beliefs you have are the result of imitating people who you regard as having admirable qualities, like being intellectually gifted experts, socially aware comedians, or just all-around good, decent people. Imitation is an instinct grounded in procedural knowing, which is why social animals and infants who are incapable of propositional knowing are able to and must imitate others around them in order to develop cognitively. Imitation is the fundamental mechanism by which culture, ideas, and beliefs are spread. In fact, the very definition of meme is a unit of cultural information that is transmitted via imitation. All of this points to the fact that if you want to change people's minds, if you want to win the meme war, you cannot rely solely on having the most logically coherent and propositionally sound arguments. You must possess enough RIZZ to catalyze in people the instinct to imitate your beliefs. Propositional knowing is like blacksmithing, being able to forge a strong weapon and assemble facts into a powerful theory. But the ability to use that weapon or use that theory is a function of RIZZ. It's an entirely different skill set. This explains why most of the people who have seized the means and memes of cultural production in our society are not really intellectuals, but comedians. People who can channel the magic of RIZZ to acquire large audiences and then, using the technology of digital mass media, spread their memes and ideas throughout the culture. And this is where it comes back to the autistic. Obviously, many people, if not most people who have autism, are perfectly capable of understanding and possessing RIZZ.
I'm actually making history tonight as the first person with Asperger's to host SNL.
But these cognitive berserkers must understand that their ability to craft highly logical arguments, if not properly balanced with some level of RIZZ, makes it almost impossible to convince others of their beliefs.
Autism is not necessarily a bad thing.
I think it's a competitive advantage in the right dose.
There's a sweet spot. There's a sweet spot of autism. I think I'm beyond the sweet spot. I think that what happens is that I become convinced that somebody is wrong, and I start trying to tell them about the fact that they're wrong. And, you know, as the joke goes, I thought I would be greeted as liberators. But in fact, you're actually causing a huge problem.
The point that I am making is that in order to win the meme war on behalf of enlightened centrism, we must all, autist or not, free ourselves from the shackles of propositional tyranny, bringing it back into balance with the non-propositional approach to addressing the questions of how to save our society.
But the thing that was wonderful about it was to see these two, not just two opinions, but two ways of approaching the world just come together and clash. And you basically get to decide not necessarily who you think is right, but whose approach you prefer. And I do think I agree, the one thing I definitely agree with is that this non-propositional, this narrative, this almost poetic approach to these questions is beginning to win out. That's what's definitely changing.
This is why I use the poetry of irony and sarcasm in my videos. This is why I will gladly mock and strawman someone instead of addressing their logical arguments. This is why I will ironically, unironically, make a video called "These are the correct opinions on every major political issue." Because irony and post-irony is how ideas are communicated on the internet. They are the mimetic language that the DNA of memes are coded in.
Post-irony is the perfect way of breaking through a very cynical, hard, ironic shell with a sniper, with a armor-piercing round. Bang. Feel, feel. Because what makes post-irony different from just regular sincerity is you're saying something sincere, but you're using the coded language to show that you are in the in-group. You are suffering with the person, and you have found a way out. And that's a really beautiful thought.
And so, no matter what mental illness you have, whether it's autism, schizophrenia, or libertarianism, good luck, everyone, and Godspeed.